My name is David Rayla. I'm the hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works. Nathan Rodis, is the clerk of this hearing. This hearing is being recorded and a sign-in sheet is on the table on the side of the room. Please be sure to sign in for our records and so that if necessary, we can contact you in the future regarding the item that you're here for. This public hearing is being held to consider 3 items. Order number 201184, and this is regarding notice of violations issued to Walsh Construction regarding the Van Ness Corridor Transit Improvement Project. And similarly, the third item is, first order is for other notice of violation to Walsh Construction regarding the Van Ness Corridor Transit Improvement Project, and the middle is for Trinet Construction, 1 notice of violation. So it's being requested, if everybody agrees, to move the second item as the first item. In other words, the issue to Trinet Construction will go first. Does anybody object? Okay, so the first one will become the second one, and so they will have the orders regarding Walsh Construction, all together, as it makes sense. Great. My job as the hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing items, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works make determinations. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward the finding from this hearing and make my recommendation to the director. The director will make the final determinations. When they are made, the department will notify you of them. Therefore, again, if you want to be notified, make sure to sign in. Okay, so the hearing will proceed as follows. I will ask Public Works Bureau Street User Mapping to speak first and describe how the item arrived to this hearing. Then I will ask, this is a little different than usual. I will ask the protester to speak next and address the item. And then I will ask any public agency to speak again, to speak. I understand construction management, Public Works is here, correct? Okay. Make me understand. So there's construction manager and there's also Bureau Street User Mapping, right? Okay, so the BSM will make the presentation first, correct? So we have a presentation. Okay. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. I thought there were 2 different agencies here. Okay, great. In that case, I will ask CM to come and make a presentation and describe how we arrived at today's hearing, and then we'll allow the protester to speak afterwards, kind of address the points, and after that, allow any public comments and any other agency or protester that may be present in a room. So each speaker will have up to 5 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers. When you hear the first bell, it will mean the speaker has 30 seconds left to speak. A louder second bell will signal that the time is up. Comments and questions should be addressed to me only, and not to the department or the protester/applicant. Sorry, the protester. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you can submit written testimony to me by the end of this hearing, or by email contacting the department. If I feel that a question is warranted, I will ask that question. So after all comments are completed, I will close the item. Let us now begin the hearing. May I have CM make the presentation?
Okay. All right. Good morning, Mr. Public Officer, Hearing Officer. So my name is Ben Leung, and I'm
Sorry, could you speak into the microphone a little better? Yeah, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Perfect.
All right. So good morning, Mr. Hearing Officer. So my name is Ben Leung, and I'm representing Public Works from the Construction Management section. My position for this project was the Assistant Resident Engineer. So the case for the NOV is about TriNet failed to restore the street base according to the excavation code properly along Brennan from 2nd Street to 8th Street. So let me talk about a brief history. On Monday, February 4th, about 2 p.m., my inspector arrived Brandon Street for daily inspection, and he found out we have multiple sewage trench need to be restored per the excavation code with concrete street base and temporary asphalt. However, there are like multiple locations from 2nd Street to 8th Street. We asked TriNet to restore according to code, and we issue a notice of correction. We gave 72 hours to correct the issues. So on February 7, the inspector revisited the site. However, those sewage trenches were still not completed. And therefore, we start counting the notice of violation. And the violation for this NOV is $1,000 per day. The issues were correct 18 days after, later on February 22nd. And the violation closed with a penalty of $18,000. So here's the appeal letter from TriNet. And here's the correction notice and the notice of violation. The NOC and NOV was issued by myself. So here's the pictures on site. And you can see on the left pictures, the inspector took the pictures on February 6th on 3rd Street and Brennan. You can see the sewage trench was only backfilled with dirt and asphalt on top. So there's no concrete street base and no T-trench. On the right photo, which is taken at the same spot, 2 days later, the restoration still haven't started. So TriNet eventually start on the next week, which is Monday, February 11. You can see they start putting street base, T-trench, and with a proper street restoration. So we close the case on February 22nd, and you can see the invoice total amount is $18,000. TriNet spent 18 days to fully restore all the sewer spots from 2nd Street to 8th Street. This is my end of the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I have the protester next?
Good morning, everybody. My name is James Layton. I'm a project manager for TriNet Construction. Let me start off here. So I'll first start off by going over the written appeal. And it's obvious we didn't make the effort in the first few days. That was due to us being at another side of the project where we had open trenches and trenching work that needed to be completed before we went back to this location of the NOV. We tried to get back on the 7th, that Friday, but it was a rainy day and we could not work that day. So then we arrived on Monday, the 11th. There was roughly 500 feet of main trenches that needed to be restored and roughly 25 side sewer trenches that needed to be restored. That is not feasible or possible to be done within 3 days, within 5 days. It's a long process. It would take roughly 2 weeks to complete all that work.
Are you talking about the remedial work?
Yeah, the restoring of the trenches, the basis of the NOV. So that's one point I wanted to make. We were busy with trenching work on the other side of the project that needed to be completed prior to us going back and restoring these trenches. My second point I'd like to make is there was a lot of rainy weather during the period of work. Like I said, the 7th, that Friday, that was a rainy day. The 8th, that Saturday, was a rainy day. And throughout the course of the NOV, there was a total of 8 days where rain was a factor in us not working. 4 of these days, I submitted formal rainy day delay notifications to Public Works and Ben. The other 4 days were Saturdays and Sundays that we didn't submit a formal request for a rain delay, but there were rainy days and they prevented us from working. I have a table of the precipitation, daily precipitation in February that shows that these days are accurate and work could not be completed. The type of work that we were doing, trenching, cutting, pouring concrete, you can't do that in rainy days. So I think my most valid point is that those days, it was impossible for us to remedy the situation, and I don't think we should be fined for those days. On top of that, I feel like as we're working to restore the situation and we're receiving fines, I don't feel that's fair. If we're in the location, actively remedying the situation, actively watching the trenches, if there's any sort of hazard, dealing with that and making it safe, I feel that it's a little overboard to fine us $1,000 a day. That's my take, and that pretty much details my appeal.
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And you submitted the appeal. I know you submitted the appeal letter, right? Do you have any extra material that you would like to submit to me at this
No,
point?
I have the rain days that I can give to you for your record.
If you like, you can
Sure.
submit it to me.
Yeah. And daily reports, I'll give those to you as well, and my formal inclement weather delay notifications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
These are all extra material, right?
Yes,
yeah.
extra material.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I know there's no public here, so I skip right to CM. Does CM would like to answer any of those concerns or issues? Or I guess I have questions for you then. CM, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Where's the signage sheet, by the way?
Right there by the side of the table.
So
Yes, thank you. Can I have your first and last name, please, for the record?
Ben, B-E-N, and last name is Leung, L-E-U-N-G.
Thank you. Okay, so this anything that you said regarding the duration of the work required to fix the issue, does that sound reasonable? Like, does it take usually more than 3 hours to restore a trench? I don't know because, not my field. But
Well, actually, because the T-trench restoration, it's wider than the original trench. So they need to spend time to saw cut the extra width of the concrete, demo the extra piece, remove all the dirt from the original sewer trench, widen the T-trench, and put the concrete with compaction and all the tests we need to perform. So typically, within like a one-day operation, they have a very limited areas that they can perform the trench restoration. And the fact that Brandon Street is like quite a busy street, and they have a limitation of the work hours. And
so this is some,
Yeah.
work-intensive thing. It's not like
yeah,
sweeping the street or something like that?
No. It's not like a one-day thing they can restore from 2nd Street to 8th Street. We have multiple spots.
Good, I understand. Now, and consider me as a layperson. How would TriNet, am I saying correctly TriNet, right? Not TriNet? Okay. How would TriNet know to have avoided this issue to begin with?
So we have an inspector do site inspection, and we mainly it's because it was a rain season, right? So for those trench without a proper restoration, we found multiple spots with pothole, and we received complaints from the public and concern. So we believe this is like a safety issues to the public. So we urge the contractor to restore as soon as possible.
Good information. But my question was more regarding on, was it spelled out anywhere, the right size of the trenching, or, did it have a certain kind of guidance on while it does its work, so that it will not do the wrong thing?
So we
Under specs or?
Oh yeah, the proper restoration is listed on the spec, the excavation code, the drawing as well. It shows the correct rift. They need to extend 1 feet on each side of the sewer trench to do a fully restoration, which we call a T trench because it's like a T size. And all the contractors should be aware that this is the correct procedures and the standards for the trench restoration.
And it sounds reasonable during rainy weather. This kind of work is impossible?
It's reasonable because of the weather. If it's too wet and
This was February, right? Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
February was a lot.
yeah,
of
and I can confirm those days they list on the letter. Those are the rain days they request. So according to the specs, like we have a list show that like if the contractor requests a rain day and according to the weather is really like a rain day, for some types of work they're not able to proceed properly during the adverse weather. They can determine this is a rain day, and therefore they didn't dispatch the crew to do the restoration on those days.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna give TriNet the same chance to add anything if you like. All right, thank you. I think I have all the information I need. With that said, unless there's any other public comment, I will close this item and move to the first one. Where is it? Right here. May I have Public Works make his presentation, please? May I have your first and last name?
Good morning. My name is Gene Chan from San Francisco Public Works, Infrastructure Construction Management. I may need more than 5 minutes because we're talking about 10 citations but I'll try to keep it as short as possible.
Okay, but I will afford the same time frame to the opposing side
Sure, thank you.
because I'm sure they have to deal with the same number of items.
Yes.
13 NOVs.
Yeah, 13. So I'm going over 10, and then BSM will go over 3.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So we're here today for Public Works Order 201184 to hear 10 citations numbered 10051, 10052, 10054, 10056, 10057, 10058, 10060, 1061, 1062, and 1063. These citations are issued to a city infrastructure project, the Van Ness Corridor Transit Improvement Project. Work was authorized through an excavation permit issued by Bureau of Street Use and Mapping under 17 EXC 1449. Due to the number of citations we're hearing today, I will be providing some background and context as to what brought us here today before diving into the citations themselves. The project specifications requires Walsh to adhere to applicable laws, codes, safety rules, and regulations. Specifically, the San Francisco Public Works Code, Article 2.4, excavation in public right-of-way, and regulations for working in San Francisco streets, also known as SFMTA Blue Book. Violations of Article 2.4 or the Blue Book subjects Walsh to administrative penalties. The penalty can be prescribed at up to $1,000 per day per violation. The seriousness of the violation, number of violations, the persistence, duration, and willfulness of the violator's actions are considered when assessing the amount of administrative penalty. The project was issued the notice to proceed October 27, 2016. Since then, there have been over 230 project-level NCNs, non-compliance notices, issued with over $5 million worth of liquidated damages related to housekeeping and path of travel violations. Of the 10 citations we're hearing today for this order, there are a total of 12 violations, 6 for path of travel, 3 for site protection, and 3 for housekeeping. Here's an example of a NCN issued September 28th, 2018 for path of travel less than the 7-foot required by the traffic control plans approved by our city traffic engineer. The issue was not corrected until October 24th, 2018. Walsh's quality control program prescribed a preventive action plan to prevent these issues from happening again. Here's another example. This one's for housekeeping, issued May 4th, 2018, over several blocks. The issue was ongoing and wasn't resolved. Ultimately, the NCN was administratively closed on May 23rd. Again, Walsh's quality control program prescribed a preventive action plan to prevent such issues from happening again. Additionally, on June 14th, 2018, there was a meeting held between Walsh personnel, some of its subs, SFMTA, and Public Works. We met to discuss housekeeping on a project. Topics included maintaining covered stockpiles, sweeping up soil spills, misting, wet sweeping 3 times daily, and track in, track out issues. So now I'm gonna just go into the citations themselves. Since we're kind of short on time, all of the citations were emailed to Walsh with the pictures. I have all the emails and the attachments with the photos and the NOVs included here in the package. I'd like to give this to you. David Steinberg also has a copy, which I hope he gave to you. So citation 10051, that was issued for path of travel less than 4 feet and tripping hazards. Here's some of the pictures from that package, and it was abated on the 14th. The fine was for $7,000. Citation 10052, that was emailed on March 7, 2019. Pictures and the violation was included. Here's some of the pictures from that package. It was abated on the 14th, and the fine was for $7,000. Citation 10054, that was issued for site protection with open trench and material stored in the sidewalk. There was also a text sent over to a group that we maintain, text messaging group that we maintain with Walsh. So, when any issues arise, we text them to try to have the issue resolved as soon as possible. And so it was abated. And this was fined for $1,000. Citation 10056, a correction notice was issued for housekeeping and storage of materials on March 13th. And then we re-inspected and issued the notice of violation on the 14th. Here's some of the pictures. The fine was for $22,000, but there was miscommunication for this particular citation. Within the project team itself, the construction project team itself, I think also within Walsh, and also between Walsh and the city. So I am recommending for this citation to be dismissed because there's miscommunication going on back and forth. So I think it just makes it fair. So that's my recommendation for this citation. Citation 10057, a correction notice was issued on March 13th for housekeeping and storage of materials. And then violation was subsequently, notice of violation was subsequently issued for the same violations. Here are some of the pictures. Here's it being abated, and the fine was for $4,000. Citation 10058. A correction notice was issued for housekeeping and the storage of materials on March 13th. Subsequently, on March 14th, a notice of violation was issued for the housekeeping violation. Some of the pictures from the package and the pictures from Walsh House abated. The fine was for $2,000. Here is citation 10060 for path of travel, less than 4 feet, tripping hazard, detour signage missing. Here's some of the pictures. Here's it being abated. And the fine for that was $1,000. Citation 10061, violation issued for path of travel less than 4 feet, issued on March 20th. Some of the pictures. Here's the situation being abated. And the fine was for $1,000. Citation 10062. Violation was issued for path of travel less than 4 feet and inappropriate barricades. Issued March 26, 2019. Here are some of the pictures. And here's it being abated. The fine was for $2,000. And here's citation 10063, violation for path of travel less than 4 feet, issued March 27th. Some of the pictures. And here's a situation being abated. Fine was for $1,000. And here, lastly, I have a summary of the 10 citations that were issued. Also included in that table is the type of violation when the notice was sent. This may be different than the date on the violation itself. So that is the date of the email of when the violation was communicated to Walsh. Then on another column, when it was corrected, a calculation of the time it took for the correction to be fixed, and then the fine that was issued. So again, due to the miscommunication on both sides of the fence, we are recommending dismissal of citation 10056. Also, due to the promptness in correction of violations for citations 10054, 57, 10054, 58, 60, 61, 62, 63, as shown in the table, time to correct being under 1 day, we're recommending reduction of fines. And,
Do you have the table for me?
yes, actually I don't have it printed. The PowerPoint presentation should be with David Steinberg
Okay.
in a folder that he should have designated.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get the copy then. Thank you.
Cool, thank you.
BSM going next, or are we?
Walsh is going next.
Why don't you finish it? We've got it all lumped together as one, so why don't you guys go ahead? Sorry.
Do you have a copy of the PowerPoint? Or do you need a copy?
I'll see it over there. No, I don't have it with me.
Okay, Jessica Salami, Public Works, on... Okay,
This is the third item, yes.
it's a separate item, so you're gonna have to call it.
Oh, yeah, okay. Now I understand what's going on. Is everybody agrees to combine the two orders since they're talking about the same
Yeah.
contractor?
Yeah,
In that case, sorry, I don't know why I'm covering this. In that case, I'll allow it, and please proceed.
okay. Jessica Salami, Public Works, on March 26th, 2019, a correction notice was issued at Van Ness and Pacific Avenue for 2 code sections, one of which was voided out after review by the inspector.
I'm sorry,
The
can I have your
correction notice,
can I have your first and last name?
Jessica Salami.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
The correction notices were emailed to a group from Walsh as well as MTA and Public Works. Just Public Works, sorry. Showing that the correction notices, per your conversation with Jonathan Vang, 24 correction notices were issued to MOS Construction, Walsh Construction for improper shoring at 30 Van Ness. Michael O'Shaughnessy was notified and will address the violation tonight. BSM performed a site visit at Pacific and Van Ness earlier this afternoon and found various Public Works code violations which needed to be addressed. A 24-hour correction notice was issued today, March 26th. Please review attached photos and violations and address accordingly. Here are the photos from the initial inspection. And then this is from the sidewalk. You can see that the plywood was not tapered nor any cutback was placed. And then this is from the follow-up. On March 28th, an email was sent out. Hi, Dan, Paul. Per our follow-up inspection at Van Ness and Filbert, we noticed some items listed from Inspector Mark Burr's correction notice dated March 26th was not addressed. Therefore, the correction notice is now turned into a notice of violation number 122287 issued for the following violations. Referring violation from previous emails, photos, plywood tripping hazards, northeast corner of Pacific, photo number 8603, and around manhole in the south side of Pacific, photo number 6141, tripping hazards. Current accruing penalties are $2,000 per day. On March 29th, it was abated. Photo on the right side shows that the cutback was added to the plywood. Walsh appealed these. Notice of violation number 12288. The issued and emailed to Walsh with the NOV and the pictures for violations of improper site protection and improper housekeeping. Here are the photos from the initial inspection. And these are the photos from the follow-up inspection. And the appeal letters and the invoice. Notice of violation 12289 was emailed and sent to the group again on March 28th. Here are the initial photos. The violation was for improper site protection and improper housekeeping and site protection. And it was abated on March 29th as well. And the invoice and the appeal letter. That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you need this copy, David?
Sorry?
You need this copy?
Yes, please, if you'd like to submit it to me. Thanks. Please begin.
Good morning, sir. My name is Kelly Burnett. I am the Senior Project Manager for Walsh Construction for the Van Ness Corridor Improvements Project. Amanda Hoosier is going to be presenting our positions on all of these individual NOVs here today. One thing I'd like to start with here today is to ensure you that Walsh's commitment to safety is second to none. We are very, very committed to the safety of our people and to the traveling public as well. And I think Amanda is going to show you that here today when she goes through some of these NOVs and how prompt we were in our response to it. Our number one concern here today is, excuse me, our number one concern is we want to follow the DPW process on proper notice to us, and Amanda will go through that as well. And I will come up and have a few closing comments at the end. We will do our best to respect the 5 minutes per NOV to go through it. Amanda?
Thank you.
Small correction, it's not 5 minutes per NOV, it's per presentation.
Okay.
That I know it's going to be challenging, so.
We'll do better.
I will try to be prompt.
Sure. Could you restate your first and last name, please?
Yes, my first name is Amanda, last name Hooser, Hooser.
Got it. Thank you. And you are with Walsh?
Yes, I'm a project engineer for Walsh
Project-
Construction.
Thank you.
So the intent of the presentation today is for us to outline the process that DPW has been using to issue the NOVs to us, and then also outline our reasons for appeal today for the NOVs listed here. And as we stated, we're combining from the presentation that Jean gave for DPW and then the BSM one. So as I stated, our focus here today is to go over the procedure. Currently, DPW's procedure for issuing notices of correction and violation has several procedural issues, and this has inhibited Walsh's ability to acknowledge, assess, and resolve the issues in a timely manner. So I'm going to walk through NOV 10058 for you guys because it best demonstrates how these issues are creating challenges for us. So this here is citation 10058. I know it's kind of small, but I'll call out a few items for you. If you notice here, DPW observed the incident on March the 12th at 4:43 p.m. It was issued as a notice of correction for failure to sweep and improper storage of materials. However, the email that notified Walsh of the incident didn't come until the following day. And even so, email is not an approved process for Walsh to be receiving a notice. An email assumes that anybody on the CC list is sitting at their desk, available to receive it at that time. As we all know, we get hundreds of emails. To assume that we could receive it and act upon it at the timestamp of the email, we feel is unreasonable. In addition, there are not all necessary parties included or copied on these emails. The list tends to change. Even so, DPW's own form states, without admitting guilt, I acknowledge receipt, in this box here. To date, Walsh has never been provided a hard copy of the form to acknowledge that receipt. DPW has consistently signed for us in that box and dated and timed the email, which again is unreasonable for us to assume that the exact time the email was sent was the time it was notified to us and we were able to act on the issue. So these were some of the photos that were attached. As you can see, some minor housekeeping issues, things that could be resolved very quickly. And as I stated, it took DPW a full day to notify us of the incident via email, but they only allowed us 3 hours to abate the issue. The email was sent around 2 p.m. and was required to be abated by 5 p.m. that same day. So even though DPW had a full day, we had less than 3 hours. When a reinspection occurred later that evening, and it wasn't abated in that tight time frame, DPW issued the notice of violation for the failure to sweep item. And again, it took them a full day to notify us of the reinspection and the failure to abate. So we weren't even aware that we failed the reinspection until the following day. And again, DPW signed for us acknowledging receipt of the NOV and notice and time-stamped the time of the email. Now this was confusing for Walsh because we were in possession of citation 10058, as it remained as a correction with a signature from a DPW inspector and no indication of fines. Now, DPW claimed that this was improper because the signature was at the bottom of the form and it needed to be in the reinspection area, as you saw on the previous form. However, this is inconsistent with the fact that DPW has signed off 10051 at the bottom and issued fines. So it's inconsistent in the locations that they've been signing off their forms, inspector to inspector. And we've continued to incur fines because of the location of the signatures. Even so, DPW issued a $2,000 fine on April 5th, and Walsh wasn't even able to receive the fine until April 9th, which is 4 days into the 10-day appeal period that were allotted. And I'd also like to mention that DPW issued the fines at $1,000 a day for 2 days. 1 day being the day that they had not yet notified us of the issue, and the next day being 12 minutes into 12:12 a.m. The reinspection for the notice of violation happened at 12:12 a.m., and they fined us for a full calendar day for those 12 minutes. So this here was the violation that was included with the fines. As you can see, another version of the form. It acknowledges here that 12:12 a.m. reinspection. And again, DPW didn't notify Walsh of that reinspection for 24 hours, but once they did, it took us the same working day to resolve the issue. And you'll notice here, there's a different signature by a different DPW inspector, and this time issuing a fine. So I say all this to show that 10058 is an example of how the process that DPW is using to issue fines has created confusion for Walsh, because in this single citation, there are 4 versions of the same form with different signatures and different indications of corrections, of fines, and it creates confusion on our end on whether the resolution has happened, and we can move on to the next item. So now that we've gotten through that, I'd like to outline our reasons for appeal today. The first being that we feel the fines issued exceed the allowable amount per the Public Works Order 178-940, which Gene referenced in his presentation, and that's true on all of our violations. 2 being the lack of Walsh's acknowledgement of receipt. As I commented, Walsh has never been provided a hard copy of the form and never been given the opportunity to sign for receipt. 3, an improper or inconsistent process for the issuance. As we saw with 10058, DPW has not been consistent in the methods they're using to issue these NOVs. Reason 4, unreasonable time constraints. Again, as we saw in 10058, DPW takes up to a day to notify us, but gives us less than 3 hours to abate the issue. Reason 5, the fines being incurred happened before notification of the incident. As we saw with 10058, we incurred $1,000 of fines for a day when we were unaware of the issue because DPW had not yet sent us an email. Issue 6, issuance of violation without initial opportunity for correction. On almost all the violations in this series, DPW did not issue an opportunity for correction. They went straight to violation, saying that there was an imminent threat to health and safety. And as you will see on this string of violations, they're usually minor housekeeping issues. Reason 7, improper DPW signature locations or multiple signatures, like we saw in 10058. The signatures show up in different locations, or there's multiple versions of the same form, leaving Walsh to think that items are closed out that aren't. And reason 8, improper delivery of the fines, which diminishes our 10-day appeal period when we receive the fine 6 or 7 days into that period. So I'm going to elaborate further on the fines exceeding the allowable amount. Currently, the sum of all the fines for this series, and since we're combining, would be $53,000. As Gene references the cover page of our utility excavation permit, and it's the same number that he referenced in his presentation, in that very small highlighted area, it says that it'll be in conjunction with Public Works Order 178-940, which is here. 178-940 actually includes a list of violations and the not to exceed amount for those individual violations. So I'm going to highlight a few for you. Number 4 is for improper site protection. This includes path of travel, barricading. The fine that's shown there, the penalty, is not to exceed $500 a day. Currently, DPW is issuing at $1,000, which is double that amount. There's also item number 11 is for improper housekeeping, and that one is not to exceed $100 per day. Issuing fines at $1,000 per day would be 10 times the not to exceed amount per our excavation permit that's in conjunction with this Public Works Order. Item 2, lack of acknowledgement of receipt. As I stated before, DPW is not the authorized party to sign for acknowledgement of receipt. As their form clearly states, it says that I acknowledge receipt of the form, which would be a Walsh party. The only Walsh parties that are authorized to receive this form would be Kelly Burnett or Dan Hart, and the reason being that to date, we have been fined over $200,000, and we feel it's unreasonable for DPW to acknowledge receipt without a senior project manager level of acknowledgement. And unfortunately, this is true on every single violation in this series. You will see that either DPW signed the acknowledgement for receipt, or in the case of the BSM violations, there is no signature acknowledging receipt. So fines are being incurred before any citation has been acknowledged by our side. Reason 3, we've brought up this inconsistent process of the issuance. DPW has been emailing photos to us, but not all necessary parties are CC'd on this email list. In addition, as we've seen, the emails are sometimes sent up to a day after the citation occurs. Even so, the Walsh receives the citation and will take corrective action as soon as possible, and as you'll see in this presentation, it's almost the same day every time. So the best example of this would be the last 3 issued by BSM. And to go in further to the email list, so our emails occur up to a day after. It allows multiple copies of the NOV to exist. It allows the form to also change. As we saw with 10058, a different signature will be added, it'll move to a violation, and we'll be unaware of that issue. And it does not include all the necessary parties. And lastly, it's very difficult because when we email these NOVs, it's not accessible to all parties. At any point in time, if Kelly Burnett asks me to bring up an NOV, I have to ask around the office who is CC'd on that list and if they could dig through their inbox to see if they have that NOV. And again, Kelly Burnett is not on this list, and neither is any administrative personnel that would help us log and track these citations. So this inconsistent process is true through all of our NOVs. As you can see here, 10051, it was occurred at 8:30 in the morning, it looks like, and we weren't notified till 5:45 p.m. So it occurred at the beginning of the day, and DPW didn't notify us till the end of the day. At that time, most of our office had gone home for the day, so we wouldn't be able to tackle the issue till the following day. 10052 is a similar scenario. 11:30 a.m. is when the citation occurred. We weren't notified until 6 p.m. Again, our office is out for the day. A whole workday has now passed, and we've incurred fines for that workday. And then with citations 10057, 56, 57, and 58, it took a full calendar day for DPW to notify us of the incident in the field. Now, as I said, this is best demonstrated with the most recent BSM violations. This was the same email that they brought forward. As you can see, it's that 24-hour correction notice that was given on 3/26. It was emailed at 4:15 p.m., so we're in that last hour of the working day there. And neither Kelly Burnett or Matt Culp are CC'd. And this is important for me to note because Matt Culp is our site superintendent. So this would be the point of contact to make sure this gets resolved in the field immediately. Observation 1 was the improper shoring that they mentioned. Apparently it was communicated to our subcontractor MOS, but no photos were actually provided in this email of that incident. So Walsh had no evidence that the incident occurred and no indication of where exactly the issue was. And observation number 2 being 2 tripping hazards, and these photos were included. It was the plywood tripping hazard the BSM mentioned, and a manhole tripping hazard. The bottom photo 6141 is actually representative of an existing condition on the job site. We had not yet performed any work here. So this is a tripping hazard that occurred before we had anything to do with that area. As they mentioned, they followed up with an email on the 28th at 5:18 p.m., again after the workday is over. And this time they outlined the previous citations that were not resolved, in addition, additional violations, which is challenging for Walsh when there's multiple citations or violations being referenced in the same email. It's difficult to track them. In addition, none of the forms were actually provided in any of these emails, so we didn't have an NOV or an NOC form. Again, neither Matt Culp or Kelly Burnett are included in this correspondence, so our senior project manager and our site superintendent are unaware of the issue at this time. Observation 1 was apparently closed. The improper shoring was closed with an NOC, number 12016. We have to date never been provided that form, and it wasn't included in this email. Observation 2, the tripping hazards were moved to violations when DPW re-inspected and said that they were unresolved, and that was NOV 12287. And then 2 additional violations were added here. Observation 3 was a minor housekeeping and site protection issue. It was issued as NOV 12288, and Walsh was never provided the opportunity for a correction and went straight to violation. And these are some of the photos. Minor housekeeping issues did not pose any imminent threat to the health and safety of the public. Observation 4, similarly another housekeeping issue. It was issued straight as a violation, 12289, no opportunity for correction. And again, minor issues that we could resolve quickly. Now the following morning, at 8 a.m., Walsh abated these issues immediately. 12288 and 12289 were resolved by the next morning. And if you see here, now Matt Culp and Kelly Burnett have been added to the CC list. Once we were made aware, and our project staff who needed to be involved were made aware, the issue was resolved by the next morning. And later that morning, 12287 was closed, in which we acknowledged that photo 6141 of that manhole was actually an existing condition. Even so, with the promptness of our response and our ability to abate within the next day, DPW issued fines on April 3rd, and again, we didn't receive them until April 9th, which was 6 days into that 10-day appeal period. And this was the first time we actually had access to any of the NOV forms, which you can see here. And I'd like to note again, there is no signature at the acknowledgement receipt box. And the forms themselves had several issues for us. One being the bottom of 12287 was showing fines at $2,000 a day. However, the invoice itself was showing them at $1,000 a day. In addition, the notice of violation on the form is for inadequate path of travel. However, the email that it's related to was calling out a tripping hazard. So the forms were inconsistent between the NOV, the actual invoice, and then the email that was sent to us that described the issue. And unfortunately, with the package of violations, we weren't actually provided any of the photos. So it was difficult for us to identify what the issue was. With the original correspondence not including our senior level project managers, it was very difficult to track down this issue. Item 4, we're revisiting the unreasonable time constraints. We saw that with 10058. DPW doesn't notify Walsh for almost a full day, but then requires us to abate by 5 p.m. Again, this was less than 4 hours. The same with 10057, and as we saw with 10058, we have 3 to 5 hours to resolve, and if we don't within that time, it's moved to a violation. But DPW has a full calendar day to notify us of the issue. Item 5, fines were being incurred before notification of the incident. We saw that with 10058. It's also consistent with 10056 and 10057. We incurred fines for the full day in which we were not notified of the issue yet. Item 6, issuance of fines for NOV without opportunity for correction. We saw that before with a couple of our violations. So I'll show you an example here. DPW didn't notify Walsh for about an hour after the incident occurred. But once Walsh was notified, we resolved in 30 minutes. But because it was issued as a violation and not a correction, we incurred $1,000 of fines for each violation, so $2,000 of fines for this citation. And it's not unique to that one. Here's another example. DPW didn't notify us of 10063 for about an hour. But again, it only took Walsh under 2 hours to resolve the issue. But being issued as a violation, we incurred fines. Reason 7 for appeal is the improper DPW signature locations and multiple signatures. We've seen this in 10058. DPW has claimed that this is the correct location for a signature in the reinspection. However, 10051, 10052, and it looks like 10058 were signed off at the bottom, no signature at the reinspection location, and were issued fines. So DPW is enforcing that the signature has to be in a specific location, but they are being inconsistent on where they're signing. And lastly, our final reason for appeal is the improper delivery of the issuance of fines. The issuance of fines are showing up to us in a hand-addressed envelope with some postage information, but unfortunately they're landing on different desks in our office. In addition, it's hard to gauge when we'll be receiving the actual fines. For example, 10056 was signed off on March 13th, but the fines weren't issued until May 15th. So for 2 months, we've been looking for the fines to show up. We didn't see them. At the time, we thought it was a correction. We didn't believe the fines were going to be issued, and then they show up 2 months later. Then the issuance of fines were received by Walsh, again, as we've shown, several days into our short 10-day appeal period. Now, due to this inconsistent process, you'll see that some of these issuance of fines will have a stamp from Walsh that says receipt, and that's because some of them will make it to our document control team who can track them and log them. But unfortunately, there are fines in this series that never made it to a document control desk. We weren't able to stamp and receive them, and it required us to dig through different people's desks and piles of paperwork to try and find these fines. So in closing, we feel that DPW has been inconsistent with their processes for issuing corrections, violations, and fines. Walsh has been exhausting its administrative resources to track DPW's inconsistent process and now be here to appeal the violations. And as I've shown, Walsh has consistently abated the issues promptly after the notice has occurred from DPW, therefore eliminating the reason for DPW to continue issuing violations. We have shown that we attack the issue and resolve the issue oftentimes the same day, so correction notices would be agreeable for us moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, sir. I'll have BSM next, and then I have you
Okay.
after. Wow, okay. There's a lot of information, but a lot of NOVs. So can I have, sorry, not BSM, but CM. Can I have your first and last name, please?
Jean Chan.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm sure that you have some kind of rebuttal to some of these.
Do you have any questions for me first?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Usually do 3 hearings, and people are more focused on denying that there was ever a problem. But here, things happen in the project side, and from what I gather, it's not so much whether the issue has happened, but whether or not the proper channels were followed. So I'm going to focus on that. So the first thing is there an understanding on who is the correct contact person for which kind of documents? For example, you have design documents that should be delivered to a project engineer or whoever it is, and for these kind of documents, for NOVs or NCNs, is there a meeting where they say, hey, this is the person to contact? Okay, is there such a person for both sides, I guess?
So so for project-related documents, such as submittals, RFIs, letters, things like that, we have a document control group that controls the flow of that information and documents. For these field issues, so earlier I alluded to a text message group that we maintain. My inspectors maintain it with some of Walsh's key people, such as Matt Culp and Dave Castile. They are the superintendents listed on Walsh's organizational chart and also their submittal. Ever since Mr. Dan Hart came on board with Walsh, I believe it was I think it was last year, March. I don't remember the exact date. He was communicated to us verbally that he was the person to fix issues, problems, things like that. So for these NOVs and notice of corrections, we have been sending it to him.
Sorry, what's the last name of this person?
Daniel Hart,
Hart.
H-A-R-T.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Go on.
Yeah, and
Okay.
yeah, so we've been sending it to him.
Okay.
And I think the package that I just gave you outlines all the emails that have been sent, who was on that contact list, and I think there's a CC list as well.
Okay, so in your mind, once you contact this person, this Mr. Hart, then you're done. Is that correct?
It'll be up to him to distribute the information to get the problem fixed or resolved.
That makes sense. As long as he's the correct person and not
Yes.
Okay. Contact person for Walsh. Regarding, so that's regarding procedure for these NOVs. Are emails, what proper channel communications can these NOVs be delivered to or has?
We usually do it email. We usually do it through email because that's the quickest, fastest way. And we know who to send it to, Mr. Dan Hart. We were verbally informed when Mr. Dan Hart came on board with Walsh onto this project that he was the point of contact for issues. So I believe that's the proper channel.
Is acknowledgement of receipt required? Or
That is not required. Although it is on the form, it is not required. And I believe BSM also follows the same procedure. They are mainly the agency that utilizes these forms.
okay. How about pictures as evidence of the violation? I understand in most of these NOVs they were provided.
Yes.
And some of them they were not.
I believe they were. I think you have the whole package in front of you.
I reviewed.
I checked and it should be all there. It should be
Okay.
all there.
Okay. From the contractor perspective, if I don't receive pictures with the NOVs or the NCN, it will make it difficult to fix an issue that you cannot visually see.
Correct.
Right, but you're saying that they're all in
Yes.
here in the email communication or posting communication.
Yes.
Okay. So I will double check that.
Sure. Thank you.
Regarding the discrepancy between inspection, fining, and communication and abatement, how do you respond to those remarks?
So miscommunication, I think it happened on both sides of the fence. If we issued a correction notice and it was signed off by someone else, and it was not communicated to our project team internally, then we will honor that. And that's why for citation 10056, Amanda had previously brought that to my attention, which is why I am recommending dismissal of it. Because miscommunication happened within our city project team, and also within Walsh's project team, and also between the city and Walsh, vice versa.
Okay. Now, could you tell me how does the penalty work? In these cases, it looks like these are a relatively short amount of time to operate. Walsh is remarking that these notices are being received after the closing business day, so we didn't have materially enough time to to address it, and yet the $2,000 fine or $1,000 fine, they get activated, right? So is that the proper procedure for the for assigning these fines?
So under Article 2.4, Section 2.4.83, Paragraph A, Subparagraph B, for violations that create an imminent danger to public health, safety, or welfare, they are subject to, they need to immediately remediate.
Okay, so it's similar to
and then based on
parking
the
situation.
seriousness of the misconduct, the number of times this happened, there's other factors. The code, which has an overarching authority over the excavation order 178,940. It allows penalties to be assessed up to $1,000 per day per violation. So all of these cases had to do with path of travel, housekeeping. I know that it was mentioned that these are minor housekeeping issues, but the gravity of the situation is, we've received 311 complaints with stockpile cover, the plastic cover being blown off into the roadway. We have to keep in mind that we are operating this construction project in a densely populated urban environment on a Caltrans highway. So, the stockpile cover being blown into the road, I've seen the cover being blown on the sidewalk. We have dust complaints from Department of Public Health that has reached the supervisors, district supervisors level. So I don't see these as minor housekeeping issues.
So this issue, they've been going on for a while.
Correct.
Okay, not this specific one, but
These kinds of violations, yes.
I see. And there is a procedure in place in the project documents that align how to avoid these issues in the first place?
Yes. There's specification sections on it, how to mitigate these environmental, and as a contractor, they need to abide by Article 2.4. It's outlined in their project specs. They need to abide by the Blue Book, also outlined in their specs, which is also outlined with the permit. Yeah.
Good, thank you. Regarding the some this kind of competing order, 178940 regarding the max amount for this category of fines, which one prevails? Sounds like.
I believe the code prevails because the order is produced after the code is adopted by the Board of Supervisors. So the departmental order is produced by the Director of Public Works, which operates underneath the authority of basically all the city ordinances and the city code, especially the Public Works Code.
Okay, so one is the ordinance, the other one is code. Okay, that's for me to figure out. Let's see. Let's see. So regarding these NOV forms that they've been used, and the complaints regarding improper placement of signatures or data. How do you respond to that? Does it invalidate where the content is or where the signatures are, or even beyond that, and more simply, does it cause it can cause confusion? I think that there was a main complaint that these forms are not filled out consistently, across each NOV, and therefore it can cause confusion on whether or not this is something that needed to be acted upon, or if it is acted upon, if it is resolved.
So
Shouldn't they be all the same?
well, these are carbon copies, so the preceding information should be the same. What you're filling out is adding information to the form. I think what Walsh is alluding to is that some of these are signed off. So meaning, let's say, for example, we issued a notice to correct, and then it was signed on the bottom, completed, meaning issues done, resolved. Then someone goes ahead and continues it from a correction notice to a notice of violation. So that's where the discrepancy is. And again, this is a miscommunication. And we will honor the signature that it's been corrected. So if we have a signature that says it's been corrected prior to it turning into a violation, we will honor that. So the only case that I know of that Amanda from Walsh has brought to my attention is citation 10056, which is the one that I'm recommending dismissal of.
Okay.
I have a few other comments. Walsh is saying that these notices should go to Kelly or Dan. As I've mentioned before, Dan was, Walsh had told our project team that Dan is the person to go to, so that's why the notices are going to them, or going to Dan. But Walsh also said, hey, it should also go to Matt. So I think, is it going to Kelly or Dan or Matt? That's a question for me. I think on the organizational chart that Walsh has provided to the project, I think there's some discrepancies there as well, what Dan's role is, because it overtakes, in reality, Dan's role kind of overtakes the role of Matt and Dave Castile. Dave Castile is listed as the superintendent of the project. And yes, we do acknowledge that some of the violations were sent up to a day after it being written. So I've already tabulated that. I mentioned before that column captures the date when it was sent over. And because of how prompt Walsh was in correcting the issues, especially for the ones that are corrected in less than 24 hours, I'm recommending a reduction of fines for that. And the comment about signing for us, that us signing for Walsh, we're not signing for them. I think if you will see in the package, the NOVs are included. We're not signing for them, we're just making a note that an email was sent. The comment about it almost being impossible to fix issues in less than 3 hours, in that table you will see that issues are being resolved. within a short time frame, reasonable time frame. Some of them in about half an hour. So those are ones I'm recommending reduction of fines for.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Does BSM has something to add as well?
Do you have any questions for us?
Oh, just if you have any additional information regarding the question that I asked, and just to refresh.
I just have one thing I want to piggyback off of
Sure.
the dollar amount for the violations.
Could I have your first and last name, please?
Jessica Salami.
For BSM, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
So the dollar amount on the violations are set forth by the city attorney's office. We don't set those.
Okay, so the fine amount is set from the attorney's office.
The city attorney's office, correct?
From the city attorney. From for the NOVs.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So those other limits that we've seen previously, the $500.
Those are from an old Public Works order.
So the
We're
new.
currently on a new Public Works order.
So that's totally superseded. Is that what you're trying to say? Okay.
So the new DPW order number is 187005. I have a copy here for you as well.
Thank you.
And that highlights all the sections of the 2.4 code as well.
187005.
Yes.
And that is 2018, January, seems like. That's when it was signed off. Okay, thank you. Any other comment from BSM? Okay, thank you. I'll have Walsh if they want to add something to it. And let's start now with the time limits, please. Nathan, can we start with the time limits? The time limit. Thanks.
So we have a time limit?
5 minutes?
Oh, okay. Are you going to ask all those
Oh,
questions
sorry.
again?
No, sorry. To be consistent, I'll allow you to. Sorry, I thought we were again in the presentation.
No, we're not going
My bad,
again.
my bad.
I think we're done there. Kelly
Please.
Burnett with Walsh Construction,
Yes.
Senior Project Manager for the Van Ness project. I wrote down the questions, so maybe, and I'll try and answer them in the order that you asked them before.
Sure.
Is there an understanding of the process? I don't believe there is an understanding of the process. The process on this project has suffered throughout its existence. And I give you a couple of examples of that. Is that early on, the designer of record would bring in documents to us without going through the RE's office and give us new sets of drawings and documents very often. We have sent several letters over explaining that everything must be addressed to me as Kelly Burnett as the project manager. So I think that the process has been established. However, the city has shown several times in several different cases where it does not follow the process that has been established. Process is very, very important on projects of this size and magnitude. Remember, we are reconstructing 2.25 miles of Van Ness Boulevard. We have lots of different operations going on out there. We have many, many DSEs that we call, differing site conditions, that cause this construction team to have to move and go into several different areas of the project that we hadn't originally planned to do. And that's very, very important to understand because things are changing and we have a lot of area to cover. And we're trying to do this to support the city to be able to get the project done on time.
So again, from my understanding, you're reiterating that you are the only contact person for this type of documents?
Like Amanda said in her presentation, myself and Dan Hart are the people that should be signing the documents. Understanding that when these things are coming to us, Gene tried to allude to the fact that they send us text. However, they are not consistent with sending us text to communicate when something needs to be repaired. I think this form is very, very clear, and it's concise on how it has been developed by DPW, in that when you have a notice of correction, somebody in our organization that has the authority to signs it that they have received it. That way we can go and fix it immediately. Where we're waiting hours and hours for things to come to us, or days, is not acceptable in our eyes, because we have shown to you several times that safety is our #1 priority here. We want to go out and get things fixed. We are using subcontractors as part of this project on MTA's behalf, because they've requested that we use local contractors. These local contractors are absolutely perplexed on what is going on this project with the poor communications. They have been working in the city for as many as 40 years, and they have never experienced such poor communication on their behalfs. So that is a key to this problem that we have in front of us. The protocol must be followed that's on this form, and that is, when there is a notice of correction, we have to be given that notice for correction. So we take that information, we sign it, and we will go get it fixed. We have proven that. When it goes to the violation, it's another tear off of this form, so nothing can change on it. You saw in Amanda's presentation several times where they change things as we go. That's not acceptable. We want to fix everything that's out there, and we need to know and be properly communicated to. That's all we're asking. There is money associated with this. That is why I believe this form is as rigid as it is, and they're trying to evade getting the proper notice to us, and that's not acceptable. They say that we've known. Like I said, this is a very large project, 2¼ miles. There is a very large homeless problem on this job, as you can imagine. Things change. We're not working in areas because we've had to leave those areas because of DSEs. Now nobody's there monitoring those areas. We have crews that run up and down the corridor checking to make sure things happen, but we can't be in every place at every minute of every day. When somebody from the homeless population takes one of our sandbags off of our stockpiles to make his home for the night, I can't control that. So what happens when a bus goes by in the middle of a rainstorm? Just exactly what Mr. Chan said, is that it blows off and goes. I can't control the homeless population in this town, and it's not my responsibility. Much of the trash and housekeeping that you identified in there is public trash. That is a change to my contract. I will be glad to go out and pick it up, but somebody needs to pay me to do that. And that's the important part of all of this. I think I hit the NOV process pretty clearly, is that I feel like I need to be notified, and I have the right to sign off on that form. I will go fix it. If I don't fix it, then I am subject to an NOV, the violation. I have to be notified that that violation has gone into effect. They are not doing that to me. And once I sign off that it's going into effect, the time starts. We have to have the correct process by the city, and every inspector out there needs to be trained on how this form is signed. And the reason for that is because the administrative people of the city follow the rules and the regulations established by the city. And if they aren't following it, I should not be held responsible for their lack of understanding here in the field. Amanda, do you have anything else that I missed?
Per Amanda Hooser with Walsh Construction, per Gene's comments that there are conditions like tarps blowing off or housekeeping issues in the field, as Kelly stated, this is an active working job site in a very heavily populated area. As you stated, we're not presenting here to say that these issues don't exist. We're saying that they do, and we'd like to work together with DPW to assess these issues and resolve them in a timely manner. As I said at the end of the presentation, I feel that notices of correction would be agreeable moving forward. If DPW is notifying us of opportunities to increase the health and safety of the public on our job site, we'd be happy to make those changes, but we're not getting communicated with effectively, and we're being assessed fines for an opportunity to make those corrections. We understand there's always circumstances on the job, but we can't do anything we don't know about. As far as the reference to Dan Hart being the point of contact, understandably, yes, Dan Hart is also a point of contact. But again, when we're dealing with emails, it's the assumption that that person is sitting at their desk, and at the time of the email, they're able to receive the information and act on it. In some scenarios, that happens. As Gene showed, there are times where we resolve within an hour. Dan happens to be at his desk or happens to be at his phone. As we are all here today, away from our desks, there are emails coming into our inbox that we aren't able to acknowledge the receipt of yet. If Dan's in the field or in a meeting with some other member of MTA, he's not able to address that issue immediately. If emails are coming in at 5:18 p.m., at 6 p.m., we can't address that immediately. Dan may be a point of contact, but using email as the channel for transmitting this information and using that timestamp as the time to start issuing the clock is unreasonable. None of us are sitting at our desk today able to act upon anything in our inbox.
Okay, thank you.
One last thing that I have, sorry. The code that they provided you is not the code that our contract is based on. That is a new city code. Our code is based out of a different code, and we do not have these fines that they are talking about in that code. Ours are specific to, job specific to our code. Why the city attorney is assigning fines on our project is an interesting concept that we need to understand, because they are trying to utilize the city attorney's office to impact Walsh, and that's not correct.
So when conditions change in a regulatory environment, like a new regulation, and your project is ongoing, how does it normally get handled within the
We use
project?
the existing code at the time of the bid.
That's standard procedure?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I understand. Thank you.
So, in closing, Walsh wants to resolve each and every one of these issues that's out there. We have to understand that this is a changing environment and that we all need to work together. We want to work with the city and all of its agencies, whether that's MTA, DPW, Public Works, BSM, whoever it may be. The only way we're going to get this job done is to work together. And this animosity that is building over these NOVs and all of the NCNs needs to stop. We need to have the right processes and procedures to get the job done so we can all work together for the common goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I will allow 1 minute rebuttal from each side, one time. I think a lot has been said.
Gene Chan, again, so I don't know why the homeless issue was brought up. Much of the violations was in part of Walsh not doing something. So housekeeping, path to travel, them not keeping it up. The superintendent should be in control of the site. They only have one main superintendent listed. For a 2-mile stretch, 2 sides, 10 plus working sites per day. I don't know if they can handle that. So it might be a staffing issue. Text is provided as a courtesy. We, as a city entity, we can issue violations, notice of corrections. We don't have to do text, we don't have to make phone calls. So that notice of correction or violation is the form of communication. Emails, I think, is the best way. Yes, someone may be sitting at a desk, so that's why you email and you have a bunch of people on the CC list. So if that one person can't get to it, other people can. And Walsh's #1 priority is safety. That's great, but we've had over 230 issues since NTP. It's ongoing. So I think they should be more proactive about it. However, in that chart, they have begun to address the issues that have been presented to them in a timely fashion. So again, my recommendation for reduction of fines.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Walsh, would like to use the 1 minute to respond?
I would like to acknowledge Amanda Hooser with Walsh. The NOV process is very recent for us, the first NOV being issued on March 6th. We have to date received 38 NOVs, 20 of them being in the same day. There was a huge learning curve for us to understand the process, understand who was issuing these, and we did all sit down in a meeting when this initially started to ask questions about what the issue was. As Kelly stated, there has been some animosity about we should be aware of these issues. There are NCNs in the job. As we've noted, it's an active working job. There are locations that we're not at sometimes. There are locations that we're working at. When you issue 20 violations in the same day via email, it's difficult to track those things, understand those things, and we, again, have reached out and had meetings with DPW to understand the process and address them.
To follow up on the homeless issue is that Gene specifically brought up an incident where the viscoon was flying across the corridor. And the reason why the viscoon was flying across the corridor is because the homeless had taken all of the sandbags and support off of it. So homeless is a real issue, and we all need to understand that. But more importantly, we need to work together. And that's the most important thing to get this job moving. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Again, there was a lot of information from all parties, and I believe I have enough for now. Feel free to submit more material if you like to me or the department for my consideration before I make my own recommendations. And with this, if there is no other public comment regarding this item, or these two items into one, I will close it, and I will close the hearing as well. Thank you.